All right, everyone, buckle up because we're about to take a deep dive into a topic that sounds kind of textbooky, control and coordination. But I promise this one's about to get really interesting. We're going to be digging into a 10th grade biology chapter, but don't worry, we're going way beyond the basics here. You're going to be surprised at how much you learn about your own body and like how it reacts without you even knowing.
Yeah, one of the things that really struck me about this chapter was how it makes you think about the word movement in a whole new way.
Right.
It's like we usually think about walking or talking, but this chapter makes you realize that movement is happening constantly in our bodies.
Yeah.
Like our bodies are always reacting to the world around us, like even when we don't even realize it.
It's like our body has its own secret agent working behind the scenes, like always on the lookout, ready to jump into action. And speaking of secret agents, they have to have those lightning fast reflexes to get themselves out of danger, right? And that's where the reflex arc comes in. It's like our body's very own shortcut to safety.
Yeah, reflex arcs are like one of the most amazing examples of just how cool evolution is. They're designed to like completely bypass the brain for the sake of speed. I mean, think about it. You react to something before you even have time to process what's happening. Like imagine touching a hot stove. You don't think, oh, hot stove, I should move my hand. It's your reflex arc that takes care of that for you.
Okay, that's wild. So, like, how does it actually work? The chapter talks about these things called neurons and impulses and synapses, and it seems like there's a lot of biology happening in, like, milliseconds.
Oh yeah, it's super fast. It all starts with these little things called receptors. They're like tiny little sensors all over your body that can detect changes in things like temperature or pressure or pain. And when a receptor is stimulated, it sends out this like electrical impulse, kind of like a little jolt of electricity that races down a neuron.
So it's like, okay, so the electrical impulse is like a text message, right? And it's zipping down your neuron highway. But it can't just, like, jump to the next neuron, can it?
You're exactly right. That's where synapses come in. Synapses are like those tiny gaps between neurons. And in order for the message to keep going, that electrical impulse has to be converted into a chemical signal. It's kind of like translating that text message into emojis that the next neuron can understand.
Wow. And all of this is happening faster than we can even blink. That's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing how our bodies are basically hardwired for these like super fast reactions. But reflexes are just like one part of the story, right?
totally.
What about all those actions that we like actually have to think about doing? Like reaching for a cup of coffee or like tying our shoes. That's where the brain really steps in, right? Like it's the main control center.
Absolutely. The brain is like the ultimate multitasker.
Mm-hmm.
It's constantly taking in information from our senses and processing it all, and then sending out instructions to different parts of the body.
Mm-hmm.
And, the chapter does a really good job of like pointing out how the brain is involved in both those voluntary actions, like when we choose to do something, but also those involuntary actions that just kind of happen automatically.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. It's like we can choose to talk, but we don't have to like consciously think about breathing. It just kind of happens. It's
Yeah.
like our brains are running this really complex operating system in the background, keeping everything functioning smoothly without us even having to like click a single button. And speaking of complex systems, the chapter actually goes into the structure of the brain itself. Like it talks about the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. It's like a map to the most important city in our body, the brain.
That's a great way to put it. And it's so cool. Each of those regions has its own like specialized functions. Like you can almost think of them as different departments in a company. So, for example, your forebrain, that's where you handle things like language and memory, decision-making, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got your midbrain, which is kind of like the relay center, helping to pass along sensory information, controlling your eye movements. And then there's the hindbrain.
Okay, what about the hindbrain? What makes it so special?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, at least for me. See, the hindbrain is home to the cerebellum, which is this structure that's responsible for like balance and coordination.
Yeah.
It even controls those movements that we totally take for granted, Like, remember that cup of coffee you mentioned earlier?
Yeah.
The cerebellum is what allows you to reach for that cup smoothly and effortlessly without even thinking about it.
Oh, wow. So it's like the cerebellum is our secret to like being graceful. I could definitely use a little help in that department. But seriously, it's incredible how the cerebellum can like fine-tune our movements without us even realizing it.
Yeah, it's constantly making these tiny adjustments behind the scenes,
Mm.
making sure that our movements are precise and fluid. Like it's the reason we can dance or play sports or even just walk in a straight line without like toppling over.
Right. You don't realize how important it is until, like, you don't have it.
Exactly. And, the chapter reminds us that this vital organ isn't just like rattling around in our skulls.
Oh, yeah. Thank goodness for that.
Right. We've got that protective casing, the skull and that cushioning fluid to keep everything safe and sound.
It's like, talk about a smart design, right? But okay, so we've talked a lot about humans, but what about plants? Like, they don't have brains, they don't have bones, but the chapter still talks about them. Like, they can still react to their
Right.
environment, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought was so cool. Like, they're not just these like static things.
Mhm.
They're actually responding to the world around them, even if it doesn't always look like it.
Right. Like, we tend to think of plants as, kind of passive, just sitting there doing their thing, but they're actually super sensitive to their environment. They're constantly sensing changes in light, gravity, even touch. Remember that sensitive plant we were talking about before?
Yeah, that's like a perfect example. Those leaves folding up when you touch them, that's the plant reacting to a stimulus.
Oh, that's right. It's like they have reflexes too, in a way.
Exactly. But, here at the really wild part, they do all that without a nervous system.
Oh, yeah. That's how they get you. Like, if they don't have brains, how do they manage to react so quickly?
Right. It's amazing. So plants, they may not have brains and nerves like animals do,
Hmm.
but they've got their own like secret communication system going on.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They actually use electrical and chemical signals to send messages from one part of the plant to another.
Wow, that's so cool. Like their own little plant internet.
Totally.
Hmm.
And while it's not as fast as like our nervous system with all those lightning fast impulses, it's still super effective.
That's amazing. Like life finds a way, right? Even without a brain. I think that's what blows my mind about all of this.
It really is incredible.
So, okay, we talked about reflexes and the brain and now plant communication. But the chapter also goes into hormones. And I know hormones are important for, growth and stuff, but the chapter really made me realize like just how much they control.
Oh, absolutely. Hormones, they're like the unsung heroes of the body. They're involved in so many different processes. It's mind-boggling. They regulate everything from our growth and development to like how we respond to stress.
That's right, like that example from the chapter about the squirrel. Remember that?
Yeah.
Like when the squirrel senses danger and its adrenal glands just pump out all that adrenaline, it's like instant energy.
Right. It's like the body's own like fight or flight alarm system.
Right.
But it's not just about giving you a quick burst of energy. Like adrenaline actually changes how your organs function, you know? Like it preps your whole body for action.
Wow, yeah, that's right. Like it's not just, oh, I'm scared, better run. It's like your body is making all these adjustments behind the scenes.
Exactly. And that's what I find so fascinating about hormones. It's like
Mhm.
they can target specific organs and trigger this whole cascade of effects.
Oh, totally. It's strategic.
Yeah. Like, for example, adrenaline. One of the things it does is it redirects blood flow. So, like, it shunts blood away from digestion and towards your muscles.
Oh, wow. So it's like your body saying, okay, we'll worry about digesting that sandwich later. Right now, we got to move.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all about priorities.
Wow. It's incredible how the body can just like make those decisions in a split second.
I know. It's amazing. And, the chapter made me realize hormones aren't just for these, like, extreme situations. They're actually working all the time, behind the scenes, regulating our metabolism, our mood, even things like our blood sugar levels. It's a nonstop job.
That's right. Those hormones, they never get a break, do they? And actually, that reminds me, remember when the chapter talked about plants and hormones?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I kind of forget that they have hormones too.
Right. Well, it's just as vital for them. Like in animals, plant hormones play a crucial role in their growth, how they develop, and even how they deal with stress, like if there's a drought or if a disease hits them, that kind of thing.
That's right. They have to react, just like us.
Exactly. It's all about survival.
That's so cool. It's like whether we're talking about a plant bending towards the light or like a person jumping out of the way of a speeding car, it all comes back to this idea of control and coordination. It's like this intricate dance that's happening at every level of life.
It's amazing, isn't it, when you
Yeah.
really think about it? And we all take it for granted.
Totally. Like even a 10th grade biology chapter can totally blow your mind when you really start to like think about the implications of it all.
It really makes you appreciate just the sheer complexity of life,
I know. And how much we still don't know. Like what other secrets of like control and coordination are still waiting to be discovered?
That's a great question. Who knows what we'll find out next?
That's what I want to know. Well, folks, that's your deep dive into the amazing world of control and coordination. From those lightning fast reflexes that keep us safe to the power of hormones and even the secret language of plants. It's a wild ride. Until next time, keep those neurons firing and never stop exploring the wonders of, well, you and all of nature.